All right. Yeah, my name's Christopher Greenlee. I'm at Avenal State Prison. I've been incarcerated since December 31st of 2001. I was charged with being an aider and abettor to a burglary, assault, a deadly weapon, petty theft with a prior, and multiple enhancements for two burglary priors from 1991, 1992. That were just that plea bargain burglaries. They weren't even burglaries. But back up. I'm the youngest of 7 brothers and sisters. I was born with a lazy eye. When my mom was pregnant with me, she took Black Beauties, which is a form of crystal methamphetamine, before she knew she was pregnant with me. And sometimes I think that's what maybe it caused my, the being blind in my right eye. My dad and my uncle was retired chief petty officer in the Navy. And my dad, he had a place in Quartzsite, Arizona with 100 acres of patented land with surrounded by a mountain range, one way in and one way out, and with 150 feet deep interconnecting holes. It was an old working gold mine. And from 1 to 8, they fed me dry gin martinis until I would, pass out drunk wherever I'd fall. And, from 5 until I was 14, my dad was a part of a major international drug organization that was very, very, very sophisticated. At any given time, there was hundreds of thousands of pounds of every kind of drug you could ever imagine, pills, mushrooms, you name it, and criminals and, drug dealers. My family had 2 sets of friends. We had the criminal and drug dealer element, and we had very, very rich and successful friends. My parents were from Iowa, and they ran to California and eloped. And like I said, my dad took off in the 70s to find out what my oldest brother's drug problem was, and ended up becoming a key figure in a drug organization with my brother's best friend from the neighborhood that we lived in Montclair, California. And he got clean and sober when I was 14 years old, and they practiced like tough love on me and stuff like that. At 12 years old, I was arrested by Upland Police Department because I had stored some stolen items that my friends up the street that lived in multi-million-dollar homes had stored in my dad's garage, and I spent the night in a drug tank. And looking back, I think that had a major psychological effect on my life, from spending the night in an adult cell with no rights, no rent, nothing, over 24 hours. And my dad came and picked me up in the morning. It was never talked about. I back up a little bit. I flunked kindergarten. I'm the only kid I ever knew that flunked kindergarten. I was caught playing house with a kindergartner, and they kicked me out of kindergarten because of an inappropriate relationship with a peer. And I attributed that. I was molested by my sister from probably the age of my earliest memory of 5 years old until I was 13 before I reached puberty, and I knew that wasn't right. A little bit after that, I lived with the kingpin drug dealer in Laguna Niguel and experienced a life and things that no kid should ever had to. I went on collections with him. I seen, money counters and safes full of money, and I knew all the key players. I was just a kid in the middle of something I should have never been a part of. And, it gave me a warped sense of belief. When I was around 11 years old or so, I was the victim of a theft. I had a 3-foot-tall dragon bank that was stolen from me, and a rock collection, one of kind of real gold, and tons of sentimental stones and stuff stolen from me, and a marble collection with marbles all the way up the size of golf balls, and all the way down to peas, steel, and a cat's eye set, and nobody was blamed for it, and I was blamed for stealing my own money, my own rock collection.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
I can recall being very vindictive, and I became a thief, and it spiraled out of control because I had a warped sense of beliefs, and growing up, it wasn't uncommon to be around, people doing drugs and living with the kingpin cocaine dealer and going to the river in a Greyhound bus at 13, 14 years old to, and then, like I said, when I lived with the kingpin, I was supposed to move with him permanently into Laguna Niguel. I came home and I smoked crack cocaine for the first time, and I fell into the neighbor's garage and stole their car phone and a camera, and I ended up going to jail behind that, to juvenile hall, and they put me in Unit 13, the toughest unit. And I can remember it was like it's just the repeatedness of getting arrested and not having an outlet, to overcome my addictions, and it was a coping mechanism. That's what I knew how to do. Is when things went wrong, I went and got drunk and high. I was an addict. I think what saved me is at 14, the number 2 in command was dealing drugs, and I ran into him, and they had me sell a couple pounds of marijuana for him, and they gave me like a half pound of cocaine. I didn't know what to do with that, but I ended up fronting some stuff to my friends, and they didn't want to pay, and these guys wanted me to blow up their car. I mean, these people were like, they were killers, and the one thing that stopped me from being, I ended up going to a friend's house and stealing his stuff because he didn't want to pay back for the stuff with a guy that was 17 years older than me when I was 15 years old. A dude 17 years older, my oldest brother's age, took me to burglarize a house. He was supposed to keep pointing. The kid's dad came home and caught me, and they kidnapped me and threatened my life, and I talked my way out of it. I got arrested by like 3 different people. I was already on probation for something, a juvenile probation, and my juvenile probation officer ended up violating me, and I went to jail, and they took me to court to testify against the second in command, the kingpin. And what's a 15-year-old kid going to court? And they ended up taking a deal, so I didn't have to testify. But when I went there, they got on the elevator and threatened me with guns, and it's crazy with a juvenile counselor. But the one thing that saved me, I had a daughter. Just prior to that, my parents, when I fell into the cocaine the first time, my parents put me in a mental hospital, and I met a girl there, and I couldn't talk about it because I was always threatened that if I talked about anything about the drug lord, everybody was going to jail. And one time I told a friend about it, and I got threatened with my life that if I ever said anything about what was going on, that everybody was going to jail. And it was just it was a burden, I used to deliver drugs for my dad with my sister, who molested me, and she would pinch, and I would think people were going to come, kill her. All around my house were guns. On the mantle was a 12-gauge shotgun, double-barrel 12-gauge shotgun loaded. There was 38s. There was weapons. When my dad got clean and sober, his first sponsor was a robbery homicide detective out of Laverne, Tim Pfeiffer, and he was like his kids could do no wrong, and I was just my parents just practiced tough love, and I went around and lived with everybody there trying to figure out what was wrong with me. And so I have this kid, and I raised her. It changed my life. When you have a baby and you hold her, and I raised her from me and my mom basically from when she was born until she was 3. It changed my life in a dramatic way. And I think that's what, caused me not to become a killer and a hardcore criminal like so many people that I emulated and was raised up around. And I was in a on again and off again relationship with her mother, Danielle Munoz, and she was just a very spoiled, rotten kid, and she had never drank. She'd get drunk and try to kick me in the balls and stuff. She had postpartum pregnancy. If I gave my daughter too much attention, she would flip out. Like the cops came. My brother-in-law, my brother's wife's brother was a robbery homicide, a San Bernardino County Sheriff's detective, and his house was like they had a connecting gate. And I would go over to that house, and there would be like cocaine parties and stuff. And I thought like he'd drive around with a pony keg, and I thought that's what a sheriff. I always wanted to be a sheriff because I thought sheriffs could drive around with a pony keg and have cocaine parties, and I thought that's what life was about. And you know, it was 5 years of hell with my baby's mama, and in the end. I went to work. My mom got me a job, at GT. I used to be a phone repair operator. Thanks for calling GT Repairs. Chris, how may I help you? Great job. And I ended up, it was just some crazy hours that, Fridays and Saturdays, I didn't want to work an overtime day, so I got fired. And I went to Family Fitness Center. And
you have 60 seconds remaining.
Family Fitness Center was was founded by Ray Wilson, the founder of Jack LaLanne with Jack LaLanne, and he sold out and wouldn't.
This call and your telephone number will be monitored and recorded.
Promised not to open any clubs for 8 years, and 8 years later, he opened up Family Fitness Centers, and I was the youngest assistant manager in Family Fitness Center history, and I was going to be a manager of the North Las Vegas club. I was going to have my own club. I did pre-sales there of over $300,000, and I loved it. I trained all my own members, took all their their measurements, shoulders, chest, waist, abs, hips, thighs, calves, and arms, and I was good at it. And my baby's mama, she was trying to get back together with me, and I was gonna for my baby's sake. And I went and seen her one day, and she was asking me if I knew where to get cocaine and stuff like that. Danielle was like, hey, you know where to get some cocaine? And I was like, I'd already been